Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're conducting a scoreless autopsy. We're going to diagnose exactly why a highly touted, deeply talented Colombian team completely stalled out and met a really sudden end against Switzerland. We're going to dig into the tactics, the fatigue, and the incredibly stout defensive wall that ultimately sent them packing in that dramatic penalty shootout.
Okay, let's dive straight into this massive, shocking number, 0. 0 goals scored by Colombia over 120 grueling minutes of knockout football. For a team absolutely brimming with attacking talent, to be held completely scoreless for over 2 hours is the glaring symptom we really need to investigate today. I mean, how does a team with so much offensive firepower end up with a goose egg on the scoreboard when it matters most?
You know, to really understand this failure, we have to contrast the massive expectations going into this tournament with the reality of what actually unfolded on the pitch. The expectation? We thought we'd see the Colombia we all know, that high-tempo, energetic, deeply physical side that just reached the Copa America finals. They had incredible support, just absolute pandemonium in the stands. But the reality? Well, we saw a sluggish, uninspired squad. They looked deeply fatigued, completely lacked creativity, and frankly, just got shut out.
So the crucial point here is that this failure wasn't just bad luck, and it definitely wasn't a fluke. It all started with a glaring tactical error. Our first cause of death for the Colombian offense is pure tactical stubbornness. They insisted on funneling absolutely everything right down the middle of the pitch, which made it remarkably easy for a well-organized defense to compress the game and completely smother them. It was literally like watching a team stubbornly bang their heads against a brick wall over and over again.
This completely illustrates their fatal flaw. They absolutely ignored the wide spaces. Whenever their key playmakers got on the ball, they consistently drifted inside, just clogging up the center. And because they lacked true out-and-out wingers to stretch that Swiss defense, their attackers kept crowding each other. They played right into the opponent's hands and made the pitch incredibly small for themselves.
Now, you want to know the ultimate irony of this setup? Because the forwards stubbornly stayed central, their biggest attacking threat, and actually their tournament top scorer, was Daniel Munoz. Guys, he's a right back. He scored 2 goals in the group stages simply because he was the only player actually finding and exploiting the open space left out on the wings. If your right back is your primary goal threat because your forwards refuse to use the full width of the pitch, your offensive system is, well, it's completely broken. But tactical issues were only part of the problem. Let's say you do manage to break down a stubborn defense. You still need someone to actually put the ball in the net, right? That brings us to cause of death number 2. Colombia simply did not have a clinical, killer number 9 striker to finish the job. There was absolutely no focal point up top to turn all of that possession into actual goals.
They banked heavily on their striker, Luis Suárez, and the disconnect here is just massive. Suárez had a fantastic goal-filled club season playing for Sporting in Portugal, but when it came to this tournament, he completely failed to translate that form to the international stage. He lacked that crucial clinical edge, he looked incredibly blunt going forward, and he simply wasn't scoring.
The experts hit the nail on the head when they noted Colombia simply lacked a killer. And honestly, it really leaves us wondering about the coaching decisions. Why was a dynamic talent like Jhon Durán left to just sit on the bench while the team was desperately searching for answers in front of goal? If your starting striker is misfiring for 120 minutes, keeping your primary backup sitting on the sidelines is a massive missed opportunity.
Which brings us to our final internal failure, and perhaps the most relatable one of all, sheer physical exhaustion. You can draw up the best tactics in the world, and you can field the best striker in the world. But if your players don't have the legs to execute the game plan, the offense is absolutely gonna flatline.
Just wrap your head around this number, 51. That is the number of games Luis Díaz played during an electrifying, insanely high-intensity season for Bayern Munich before even arriving at this tournament. Imagine trying to carry an entire national team's offense after that kind of mileage. It perfectly explains why their main talisman looks so incredibly fatigued. He was expected to put the team on his back, but he only managed 1 goal and 1 assist all tournament. His legs were just gone.
Add to that the harsh reality of their other star playmaker. As the analysts rightly pointed out, James Rodríguez is 34 years old now. He still brings undeniable world-class quality, but he simply doesn't have the engine to drive a team's creativity for a full 120 minutes anymore. He can last an hour at best before his influence really starts to fade. When your 2 main creators are either completely burnt out or aging out, a 0-0 draw suddenly makes a whole lot of sense.
But hey, it wasn't all Colombia's fault, and saying so would be doing a massive disservice to an opponent that truly played out of their minds. we have to look at the external cause, the brilliantly organized Swiss barricades standing in their way. Switzerland didn't just survive this match, they executed an absolute defensive masterclass.
The architect of this masterclass was Swiss coach Murat Yakin, and I absolutely love this observation from the pundits. With his slick-back hair, the sunglasses, and the sharp suits, he literally looks exactly like a Bond villain. But more importantly, he schemes like one too. He orchestrated a defensively compact, incredibly disciplined setup that neutralized Colombia's threats and forced them straight into those central traps we talked about earlier. And out there, marshaling the defense on the pitch, was Granit Xhaka. The analysts made a really brilliant comparison here, likening Xhaka's current form and leadership to Toni Kroos during his later, utterly dominant years at Real Madrid. Xhaka dictated the tempo, he constantly communicated, he rallied his teammates even during the penalty shootout, and he essentially acted like a coach out on the grass. He knew exactly where to be and exactly when to dictate the play.
The defensive metrics here are just wild. They prove just how stifling the Swiss actually were. They're now 11 games unbeaten. Over 120 minutes of knockout football, they held a deeply talented Colombian side to only 2 shots on target, securing their second clean sheet of the tournament. And they managed to advance on penalties, remaining completely unfazed even after their defender Manuel Akanji missed his penalty by absolutely skying it over the bar like a rugby kick. They stayed disciplined and they got the job done.
What makes this exit so tragic for Colombia is the ultimate irony of the tournament bracket. The analyst argued that Colombia's foul-heavy, highly physical, high-tempo style might have actually matched up so much better against Argentina in the very next round. Argentina plays a much more open game, which would have suited Colombia far more than Switzerland's rigid, unyielding block.
So I want to leave you with this final thought as we wrap up today's explainer. What really closed the window on this talented Colombian squad? Was it the intense physical fatigue of players like Díaz? Was it the glaring lack of a clinical striker? Or was it just plain tactical stubbornness that doomed them? They had a golden path laid out right in front of them, and they simply couldn't adapt. Thanks for joining me, and I hope this autopsy helps you see exactly why their incredible offense totally flatlined.